The history of the Desert Foothills Library goes back to February the 14th, 1954. Cave Creek in those days was basically dirt roads. There was nothing much here, but a librarian from Brooklyn, New York, arrived in Cave Creek, and her name was Dorothy Smith. She was the first librarian for our library. Dorothy would take books around in the trunk of her car. It's really a quite romantic story of how our library began. And if you look at the library today, where we've come from and what we've achieved is quite amazing. The library was also set up in a place called the Cowbell Restaurant. Now, I've not been able to find anyone who can tell me where the Cowbell Restaurant was, so it may be a myth, but I suspect not. Cave Creek is one of those quirky places where all these things do actually happen. So from 1954, we moved on to our first physical library, which was part of the Cave Creek Elementary School at the junction of Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse Road. And then jumping forward again to the mid-1970s, we see the first building arrive on our current site, which is called Saguaro Hill. That first library on Saguaro Hill was 2,500 square feet. Very, very small, about 10% of what we are today. Subsequently, there were additions made to that library in the 80s and the 90s until we arrive in the mid-2000s, when the Library Association Board decides that a major expansion of the library is in order. So the building then increases in size from 8,500 square feet to 19,000 square feet. This is a major project for the library, costing $3.74 million, which is all raised through private donations and also donations from the local towns. This sees a major jump ahead for the library, where we see additional meeting rooms, more public computers, much more space, for the first time a used bookstore, and a home for the library's passport office. We also have outdoor patios on both the north and east side of the library. Even with this major expansion, we still don't stand still, and a couple of years ago we added an extra 2,000 square feet to the bookstore, and we rebrand the bookstore to become Chapter 2 Books. The bookstore is actually the biggest bookstore north of the 101, with the exception of 2 Barnes & Noble stores right on the 101 freeway. We saw the future in programming, and that's programming for every age group, from the youngest child of 6 months old to the oldest veteran, perhaps, of 90 years old. And we began to build on programming in both of those areas. This strategy has proved to be extremely successful. During the last 4 years, the number of programs held at the library has increased 33%, and the attendance at those programs has increased by 73%. During the same period, the number of card holders that we have at the library has increased 25%. So you can see that the number of people actually walking through the door with a reason to come to the library has increased incredibly. So where do we go from here? One of the problems we have now, which has been caused by the increased attendance at the library, is parking. There have been many occasions over the last year when the parking lot has been full to capacity, and this really does cause us problems. The library owns land to the south of the current parking lot, and we can produce a 2-story parking structure which would provide the parking spaces which are necessary for the continued growth of the library. One of the problems that we have internally in the library is that we only have 3 spaces where we can hold programs. One of those, which is where I'm situated right now, can only hold about 20 people. Even our biggest room only has a capacity of approximately 66 people. So we're looking at a major reorganization of the interior of the library, which would provide us with a meeting room space with a total capacity of about 120 people. The proposed project internally would see the removal of all the existing bookshelves and their replacement with new fixtures, all on wheels, so that we could move them around the library to truly make the library a multi-purpose space. One of the most unique factors about the library is that we are a 501c3 non-profit. I truly believe that being a non-profit enables us to be very flexible in our policies, and this is to the great advantage of the library as a whole. It's estimated that the overall cost of both phases of this project would be approaching $2 million. The library board already approved the parking lot project at a cost of $900,000. We hope that we can count upon you again to help fund the second phase of the project, which will provide the internal rooms and reorganization that we need to have going forward. The fact that the library is a non-profit brings into play another fascinating part of our organization, and that is our library volunteers. The library has over 150 volunteers, without whom we would not be able to open the doors.
This library, I think, in terms of other libraries, has a lot to offer little children. I mean, we're almost like a children's museum here. We have a puppet station, we have games, we have technology, we have interactive boards to explore. There's just so many activities for little children to do besides just reading.
This is the happiest volunteer job I've ever had in my life. I feel very lucky.
It's not like so many libraries where people don't talk and converse and get to know each other, whereas with all the volunteers, everyone interrelates with each other, and it's not just employees.
But I dare say a lot of the volunteers feel just as I do, that we've made some of our best friends here.
The library is also a gallery, the Desert Foothills Gallery, which we run in collaboration with the Sonoran Arts League. The beauty of this arrangement is that local artists are able to display work in the library free of charge.
The staff at the library, very supportive of the arts community. I'm a glass artist here in Cave Creek. 25 years I've been working in my glass studio. They're very supportive. It's a beautiful venue. Everybody loves to come here. And of course the resources to all of us for any of the arts, whether it's visual or written or performance, they make a point of having the resources we need.
My greatest pleasure in association with the library is doing things for the arts. And one of the greatest joys of my life as a kid was going to camp. And one summer we actually conducted movie camp here. And that was probably the best 2 weeks I've had in years, where we had a group of kids from junior high school age on up, and they made a film, hands-on, beginning to end.
I now want to just talk a little bit about the children. This is such an important part of the library. It gives us an opportunity to provide early literacy to the young children of the community and their parents.
My first child is 10 years old, and I brought her here when she was 6 months. Educationally, she has improved in her studies.
The library has a wonderful children's section and also a great teen room where youngsters can come and gather, use computers. And what we're hoping to do as part of this project is add technology to the offer that we have, particularly for the teenagers. With regard to literacy, we have a very active book club with approximately 40 members. We have a program called Writers Connection, which enables writers to come and hear fascinating talks from authors to try and stimulate their growth as writers themselves. We have a literary salon group, which talks about all sorts of topics as they are related to books. In terms of health, we have a yoga class, we have Tai Chi, we have a relationship with Honor Health, which brings fascinating alternative medicine subjects to the library once a month. We have classes on the iPad, we have classes on Windows 10, Facebook, web browsing, and our customer research indicates that these are programs that the community craves. I have a saying that when is a library not just a library? Well, I truly believe it's when it's the Desert Foothills Library, because we're not just a library. We're a community focus for the towns of Cave Creek, Carefree, parts of North Scottsdale and North Phoenix. The library is truly a place to discover information, to connect with people, and to belong to the community of the library. And it's only through the goodwill of this wonderful community in which we live that we can do this. Our annual budget is in the region of $750,000, and our annual target for contributions from our patrons is $325,000. That's really a tall order, but the community is so wonderful that they have continued to support us as we have moved forward with the strategy that I've outlined. I know that you love the library as much as I do. It really is a labour of love working here, and I hope I can count on your support. Thank you.